I received nearly 20 of your deck list submissions, and I'm gonna pit the top 4 decks against each other in a head-to-head battle to see which one comes out on top. All for the prize of a deck list video from this guy here. What a plan. Whose idea was this? On this day, I was given an idea from a member of the Discord, which is free, and you should join it. It's the top link in the description. Anyway, sounded like a great idea, a fun opportunity to get the community involved. So then I posted this, and the messages started flooding in. I got a lot of immediate buzz, and people were super excited to see what deck would come out on top. I got 18 deck lists in response to this, which isn't a large number, to be candid, but it's still a very significant amount. Anyway, I immediately started to work on everything that I needed to do. It only took me a couple of days to test out all of the decks that were submitted, and each of the decks are fairly rated based upon fair, clear metrics and standards. To be fair, I didn't have any super strict guidelines, but I wanted to make sure I could rate these as clinically as possible. So I made sure to do the ratings like immediately after I did each game and ensured I got the best possible like finger to the pulse of how the deck felt. That way, when I was ranking my arbitrary categories like ease of play, stability, or a genuine category I put a number to, how it felt, I was as consistent and clear as I could be with each of the ones that I was vibe checking. That made me feel pretty good about my decisions and then gave me a good and clear avenue to rank them. Just to be clear though, I'm not showing you any of the stats. I tested each of them a minimum of 2, pretty much all of them 3 times. I ended up playing well over 100 hours of Magic on this alone and still had to find time to test each channel deck and balance the rest of my life. Still, probably shouldn't have taken as long as it did, but hey, by the end of it, I got it done. Am I gonna do it this way in the future? No, but now we know what caused the delay and we can grow together. So here's the deal. I want to tell you all a short little blurb on how they did, and I'll let you know how I felt about them. And every single one will get a nice little excerpt. And I'm going to be doing all that right after our sponsor. Into the AM. Into the AM is an apparel company with one goal in mind. Make the best, most comfortable shirts that you can possibly find with unbelievably vibrant prints. They print their own high-quality graphic tees and stock sharp, stylish polos, terrific tank tops, prime pants, and honestly, I can try and make a bunch of alliterations. These products genuinely exceeded my expectations, far more than I could ever imagine. And they constantly run deals for pretty much like all their products. And I mean like deals. I've seen things get up to 80% off. I've seen shirts for as low as $5. Deals like this keep rotating quickly, so you gotta check in and get them quick. And then even if you don't get anything on sale, the shirts are still well worth it. Into the AM has over 40,000 5-star product reviews. It definitely shows. They have eco-friendly inks. They back each purchase with a 30-day money-back guarantee, hassle-free returns, and lightning fast shipping. They want you to be happy with every purchase, and I absolutely know that I am. So go into intotheam.com/power10 for 10% off everything. Yeah, including the existing deals I was just telling you about. It stacks, but the good kind of stacks. So just use Power10 at checkout or click the link in the description. It is literally money you're leaving on the table. Do it. Now back to the program. All right, now where were we? Oh, yeah, the runner-ups. Here you go, heathens. All the decks that you submitted in no particular order. It's the order that I tested them in, pretty much, minus the ones that are in the top 4. To start us off, let's do the first one I tested. I chose Megatron and its absolutely terrifying potential. The whole point was throwing rocks at people like they're passing cars on an interstate, but this one isn't a felony. It's only close. It ramps hard once you get it out, but one of the main problems with big mana is that it also needs big card draw, and this one was pretty difficult to maintain a large amount of card draw in, but in all honesty, I still think it was pretty fun, and I'll link all these in the description below, so if you're interested in checking them out, you can absolutely do that. The next one is PunkRockPreacher's, a transparent attempt to make Cody wear the cowboy hat again. Nah, I think I'm good. This gas deck is a big old slap to the face of conventional Magic players, and ooh, does it really like to pop off like a shootout and a hootenanny. This thing don't know stop from go, keeping itself together through a combo that runs them ragged. However, cart got put in front of the horse here. With a little more cards in my hand and ramp on the ground, I could have flown this Vendrell vagrant to the sky. It did win a majority of them there games, but you gotta be sneaky as a bobcat in the bush. Pretty interesting if you want to be that kind of cowboy. That was weird. Speaking of weird, you feeling safe? Well, this next deck is one of the most interesting Marchesa decks I've ever played, and it's thanks to Excalibur Mech. It was a little bit skewed, so I actually did have to play this one a fourth time. Turns out, if you mix Hirobi with Backup and Marchesa, it becomes a recipe for death and depression, like Eric Clapton's Tears in Heaven. Ha! Someone must have put a trampoline in that graveyard, because it sure keeps bouncing those creatures out of there. Double whammy. I would really like to read a sequence of notes that I have from the third game. I grabbed the reins of this game like a monster. I am despicable.
I am the god of despair.
My hubris. I will perish for my folly.
Hope that tells you how well this thing performed. Daemonscharm's Mariana Vandrell is a 5-color room commander. I almost didn't have time to talk about it. I found a room. Just kidding, but I did actually want to mention something with this deck. Why so many tap lands? It really didn't need a ton of tap lands. You should have just waited 5 months after the deadline for the challenge, and you could have seen my video on how to build budget mana bases. But seriously, this one had a ton of potential, and it's something that could have been great. I think it was one of those examples of like the good rooms just got priced out in the final product. However, it was still pretty fun to sit in the corner and open and close doors for weird, nominal value throughout the game. The next one had an amazing primer. Welcome to the best Doctor pairing in MTG. The 7th Doctor and Nyssa of Traken is a... That was it. This one might have been a bit too smart of a deck for my dumb self to actually get. Sorry, Spaarc. I just kept getting confused as to what I needed to be bluffing and when, and additionally, when I did end up doing what I wanted with it, I still couldn't successfully bluff my way into getting my opponents to guess the way that I wanted them to. I don't know if it was meant to be as confusing as it is, but I think my opponents were more afraid of just how much I was in pain while trying to solve this riddle. Fun deck, and I do imagine if we got like a chess grandmaster, they could do a double DuPont Dutch Napoleon Gambit and correctly identify when it's necessary for the extra virgin olive oil shuffle, but until that nonsense makes sense to me, I don't know what I'm going to be able to do about it. And while Skullbriar appears, SumTingWong cooked on this one. I mean, this one does pretty much what you would expect a Skullbriar to do, but what is it that Skullbriar do? What makes this one so fun is the counter you put on them have squatter rights, so they end up staying forever, no matter if the card gets sent to witness protection. The only problem I ended up having with this Scully Bully is that there was almost no trample in my testing. That's a huge shame, because the last thing I needed was a ton of people chumping with a particularly terrified squirrel every single time I wanted to mail order some death to face. But with a little bit more ramp and draw, I probably would have gotten there. I just mostly had an issue with Skullbriar getting blocked and then costed out, because it just happened to get sent to the corner one too many times. Took me way out of my games. Chrome's Rograkh and Kediss, as I said in the notes, red deck goes... It really likes to have an explosive early turn that usually turns one particular opponent from an is to a was, but it does rely on you doing so with all the cards in your hand. It doesn't really have a propensity to refill them. That was the biggest issue that I had. It is fun to dish out a total like 66 damage, but when the others see you blip out their third comrade with a spicy 0-1 who just got done telling you about the power of friendship, they sometimes have words to say, and that usually ends up with you forcefully packing up and finding a new place to sniff glue. Mr. Big's Argus Coast was an interesting submission that reminded me of a dead Zada for those who do more than they can trip. The price of this one spiked due to what I'm going to call Deadpool inflation. Don't. Red cards that copy creatures have become a hot commodity because of Deadpool. Things just spiked. However, it was less than $30 when I tested it, and it still totally counts. But in my experience for this one, it just needed like an extra oomph. It had a ton of great cards in it. It's just a shame that I never got to see them. A lot of these decks were like a procrastinating architect coming up on a skate park deadline. Most of these decks just needed more drawing and more ramp. I played against this deck so much that I do know the amazing things it can do. I just think it needed some extra digging to find all the gold that's in them there hills. Gosh darn it, the hat has a mind of its own now. In that testing, I just got plenty of removal, and I did need to keep using it on things that they held dear to their hearts, so I ended up having a great time kissing the business end of their militia in return. Next up, we got Sbuddy's Marion Pippin, Wardens of Isengard. Their food tokens bring all the boys to the yard. This one specialized in making food, because each time you tap the pit for food, you get to drag along a life-linking soldier token. Once you make enough food for a feast, you're able to invite the whole castle for a court-mandated lunch break. And if you're lucky enough, you can free up some space across the table to expand your kingdom to find room for all the food you made, all while keeping your own life total nice and fat. There is an internal food synergy, and it was really nice to have an untapper along with them too. It would have been nicer to have more like instant speed artifact abilities to keep really using that token making ability on Mary. I also usually had a tough time getting the colors that I needed because it did need a bit more card draw, more mana ramp, whatever, but the land base was made pretty well. It was just slow at taking care of it. Look out, there's a fungus among us. So Nikachu's primer was very specific, and like with all primers that had instructions for me, I followed them to a T, which in this deck's case ended up with me mulliganing a lot, because I started with like one land in hand a lot. So if there was ramp, I could make an exception, but I was pretty much preying on top decks for most of it. What I do find interesting about the Shroofus build was that I was instructed to rely on politics and make some friends. Let's read the first note I made, shall we? I became a turn 3 threat that's getting quite assessed. Wasn't really fair to talk about this being a politics deck because my first act in office was war! And that was followed with, I died pretty quick, but I did have each player's life total. People for some reason do see Shroofus and then start having like non-flashbacks. It was very difficult to find anyone willing to listen about their Lord and Savior Shroofus Sproutsire for more than a turn or two, because once they saw the degeneracy that I'd bust down on turn 4, they'd flip on fight or flight, and brother, they ain't got no wings. The sapperlings it made were good for blocking though. You'd think I was working with the logging industry for how many trees died for my cause. But while they could make an army of toothpicks in a moment's notice, it did have poor recovery time if it just got wiped. I'd have wanted some better ways to draw cards, maybe it would have protected me a bit more, but in all reality, still super scary and super fun if you like it. Then there was Ghired from Subway, brought to you by the Game Tyrant. Thanks for having an alternate name, by the way. While I did find the other one hilarious, try and keep these videos clean. There's an infinite money glitch built right into this Krabby Patty, and the secret sauce is alarming. Literally, intruder alarm effects on a stick. You can get a creature that comes out and then can untap from getting copied in some way, and wablamo. You get an infinite, arbitrarily, number of tokens that don't leave us this time. The only problem with it was that couldn't really find the ways to make tokens. It was difficult to start the fireworks, so to speak. I kept getting most of the combo in hand, and I mean, it did it once really well, but once the people knew what it did, they just popped the pieces right before the combo, really throwing the most accurate wrenches into the game plan. Ultimately, couldn't dodge a wrench, meaning couldn't dodge a ball. And that's it. All of the other submissions were from people I knew personally from before I made the channel. While y'all did a great job of making the decks, it really wouldn't be fair to pick your decks over the fans' submissions. I know you are all fans, but I thought really hard about it and it just didn't seem fair. So if you have a problem with it, fight me. Don't, I'm fragile. But I will give an honorable mention. First, we got the Peanut Butter Steve with their submission. I would highly recommend checking this deck out. It probably would have been a mighty contender had I not decided to nix the people that I knew. It's extremely well built with a mount and vehicle synergy that just can feel like cheating at times. Or maybe I was just impressed with the ramp. Who knows? As stated in the description, I guess I gotta wear the hat again. Outside I'm a hootin', but inside I'm a hollerin'. This deck is about ranching and farming out in the western frontier. It's not that powerful, but the flavor is darn good, I tell you what. Next we got Bladed Greed coming at you live with a deck so good it should be illegal. I'm surprised how low the price is considering how much it's wanted. It's an outlaw deck. This one has the ramp in the command zone, which is actually pretty nice to be able to rely on. Otherwise, it's just really fun and interactive with a rogue initiative deck. That has a shocking amount of flexibility, worth a shot if you're down for that kind of thing. And then finally, we have Steven's Genku deck. Now, I've seen this one in paper a bunch, and can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, if you want a Genku deck, this one is the one to play. It's just too good at adding value to the game that you are already playing. You would have already been cracking the Evolving Wilds anyway. It didn't also need to make a fox, a rat, or a moon dude. So if you want to take advantage of that kind of ability, well, links down below. And that leads us to the 4 decks that top the charts. These are the 4 leaders of the competition, and the ones you'll be seeing face off head to head in the next installment of our competition series. The ones who will fight in our first ever budget brawl. Now, let's get acquainted with each of these decks and see what kind of power they're really packing. First up, we got Beanman's Submission, Horde of Notions with the partner Jegantha the Wellspring. This elemental powerhouse gives the cold shoulder quickly with a flurry of recurable pieces of elemental fury, dominating the board and the game. It utilizes Jegantha's ability to tap for Wooburg to not only pay for the commander's cost, but also the ability, making it so you can cast any elemental from the grave at any time you find it convenient. And the best part is, Jegantha's an elemental, so it's truly hard to keep away forever. Very powerful, synergistic build worthy of a spot. Next, we have Exo's 3rd Doctor deck. Here we dip into the world of Doctor Who and show them exactly what we can do when we can get out our non-creature tokens where we need them. Why? Because you need to trample over their faces with the 3rd Doc. That's how we win. Huge early game ramp and a large, impactful spell base that can control the board and ensure consistent value for us, leading to a spectacular finish, a deck truly worthy of the many war crimes the Doctor has committed. Following that, we have Hayao's Maya Bredegard Protector deck. What makes this deck terrifying is the fact that your value comes from one of the 2 things you really want to do in a game: ramp. And since we're in green, the value just sells itself after that. We not only get an anthem making all of our creatures bigger, but an engine in the command zone that is impossibly difficult to keep away due to the game plan just being ramp on ramp on ramp. You'll feel an earthquake in the presence of this major player, and Maya is definitely to blame. And last but certainly not least, we have Faraday's Best Soul Nourisher. Best takes so much joy in having a party of 1/1 creatures and lets them borrow the counters on her in spirit and swing in with a board that gets bigger the wider it goes. Best is a boss and is definitely ready for the battle. So who do you think will win? Who has the edge? What cards will you ante in the meantime? Don't gamble, but do stay tuned because next week, yes, next week, we'll be releasing the project that I put the absolute most effort into to date. And boy, I hope it's worth it. To make it more worth it, you could absolutely become a member. Like our joke tier member, Picard Devil the One. They actually put a deck in. They ended up deleting it and winning a few tournaments with it. CEDH tournaments. And I'd like to personally thank our ever-growing list of higher power members: White Chill, Harry B, Kudistofa Kusaba, Falopa, Charles, Peanut Butter Steve, Arumadil, Hayao, oh hey, look at that, Jennifer Griffith, Filthy Casual, Ezovor, A-Train, Angela Ryder, and all the budget supporters who keep my channel fighting the good fight. Click here for the gameplay if it's out, and if it's not out yet, or if I forgot to change it, you should get acquainted with the deck list I made. I actually worked really hard on it, and I would like it if you took me time to tell something nice about it, because it's really good.